Today on GHC Coffee Break, Jim and Bonnie Moore will be joining me about mental health consumer awareness. Get your coffee, we'll be right back.
"7,000 high school students drop out every school day. That's a line of desks more than 4 miles long. We can keep students in school. Visit boostup.org and take the first step.
Welcome to GHC Coffee Break. Joining me today is Jim and Bonnie Moore, very good friends and colleagues. I know that y'all are very involved. January is Mental Health Consumer Awareness Month, and you guys have been very involved for a very personal reason with mental health and mental health issues. So we'll start, whichever one of you want to start. This is Jim. This is Bonnie.
Good morning.
Just in case you got, people get confused.
Good morning, y'all.
They do.
As we
Let
get
Bonnie
older,
start, because she,
they say as we get older, we look more and more like our spouses. So
I know we even dress alike. We don't even plan on it. And that,
you have to have humor in life, to me.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise, it just becomes. Even if you don't have mental health issues, it becomes very depressing.
It is.
And so humor is a good thing.
Yes.
So Bonnie, tell me a little bit about why you're involved and how you got involved in mental health and, of course, mental health consumer awareness
Yes.
is an issue.
Well, we have a daughter that's 33 years old that has several diagnoses, and we knew from the time she was born something wasn't quite right. But she was the smartest of our three kids, but we couldn't put our finger on it. And a lot of testing done, and we just kind of rocked along until we moved to Rome, Georgia, and she had her first suicide attempt. And that's when we got involved with mental health.
How old was she?
She was 14 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. That was the first hospitalization, and she is now 33, and she's had 23 hospitalizations. But when she was a teenager, she had 13 within 3 years. So it was a lot. But, we're fortunate. We found a doctor, a pediatric psychiatrist, that told us to find NAMI. And it's like, what's NAMI? Mm-hmm. And we did. There was a NAMI in Rome, Georgia.
Tell everybody what NAMI is.
NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And we found one. It was in Rome. And it was the only NAMI chapter from Tennessee to Alabama, over to Gainesville, down to Marietta.
Wow.
Now, I don't think that's coincidence. So we took our first course called Family to Family. It was a free 12-week course, which we still offer here in Rome. And it teaches you about mental illness, signs, symptoms, how to communicate, how to take care of yourself, because it's very important that when you have a loved one with mental illness, you have to take care of yourself. So we got very involved with NAMI, and now Jim and I are big advocates because our system's broken.
Yeah.
Not only is it broken in Georgia, but it is broken throughout the United States. And if you don't have people to advocate for you that understand, we can't make any change. So that's where we are right now, is that we want to advocate. We want to make change. Jamie knows her illness because of NAMI. She understands her illness, and she lives what we call in recovery, which means the illness will never go away, but she learns her signs, her symptoms, when to reach out. So we've been very, very blessed because of NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness.
And I know Jim, both of you have. Jamie has also visited my class at Georgia Highlands.
Yes.
To advocate for my human service students, because of course human services mental health is going to fall under that umbrella. Mm-hmm. And I know, Jim, you have shared that there's been times that Jamie has really directed a lot of anger towards you guys as she's working through her illness.
oh yes, and primarily, guess who it's directed towards? moms. So
Because mom is the
I
one.
know
the primary
it's
caregiver.
it's a safe place, and
Mom's always going to love her. She feels like.
right. And you
Exactly.
know, over the years, I think
daddies do.
we've seen that that happen because it's so difficult to keep things in control during the day, especially during when she was growing up in school. And so some of the issues manifested itself at home. And not saying that they've gone away, because I think that's just the nature of whatever she deals with her mental illness. And she has something that's very difficult to deal with, and it's called borderline personality disorder. And when you see somebody with mental illness, you see somebody with mental illness, but she has more as well. So that led over the years her to also have post-traumatic stress disorder. You all heard of PTSD. She has bipolar disorder, which you can take medications for that, as well as PTSD, which she does. But the borderline personality disorder is one that's very difficult to deal with, and
That's
she
what
would
I've
admit
heard.
that.
Yes.
And she was going to be here today, but she has a cold, right?
Or
Flu or
might be
Or
the
flu or something, and she wanted to come and speak and tell you her story, as she has done on campus through a program that NAMI calls In Our Own Voice.
Awesome program, by the
Right,
way.
and she basically said, well, here I am today, but I wasn't always like this. I had some dark days and sad moments, and I accepted it, and I've now come into grips with it, and now I'm living in, as Bonnie said, in recovery. And it's
I like that term.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, you also mentioned the word consumer, like this is National Consumer Awareness Month, and most of us think, well, gosh, are you going out shopping today? You know, you're a consumer. But people over the years that have a mental illness are consuming mental health resources, so they wanted to have a term that was less, what would you call it, Bonnie?
Derogatory?
Yeah,
Stigmatized?
yeah, stigmatized, and therefore they settled on that. So that's kind of where that term consumer came from over the years.
Yeah, I remember back when I started, we won't take about how long ago. You know, we called them clients, patients, but really consumer, I think it had less stigma attached to it. If we want to be PC, politically correct. But bottom line is, with mental illness, many of them are invisible. It's not like a physical disability where, oh, I can see that, you know, Susan has to use her cane. She's got something wrong physically with her walking. Whereas with a mental health issue, I would say the majority are pretty well hidden until something happens and it comes out, basically.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And it could come out in various forms. Delusions, hallucinations, you know, those you typically hear of with somebody that has a psychotic disorder where they're lost touch with reality, you know, associated with mainly schizophrenia. But when we hear of others, you know, like depression, you know, when somebody is down or blue or sad, you can kind of see that. But we often miss the mania parts of like bipolar when somebody is going 100 miles an hour, and we usually associate that with productivity until they, burn out and crash.
And
Or do something illegal because of their mania. When I say illegal, something that could possibly get them in trouble that we don't think about. Like Jim said, you know, we first think, oh, this is great, they're getting a lot done. And we have a son-in-law that when he gets manic, he has done stuff like getting 2 or 3 rooms painted in 24 hours, ripping up carpet and redoing the floors. So, I mean, it can be very productive, but it can be very detrimental at the same time.
I would say it's very, very short-lived as well. And, you know, I think I'm not sure why it's so stigmatized. We're so, oh, you go to the doctor for diabetes, you go to the doctor for heart disease, you go get help for, you know, all of these medical issues, and there's still such a misunderstanding of the mental health issues. oh, I can't go to a counselor, then I'm being weak, or I'm not doing preventative care for mental health, or and you talked about depression. There's a difference between being, it's gray outside and I'm depressed, I'm so tired, I'm depressed, versus clinical depression.
Right.
Situational depression.
I was
versus
watching
clinical.
a 3-minute YouTube presentation yesterday on depression, and they made it, the strong point was there is a difference between being depressed and having a depression. So as you just said,
Right.
there's a big difference. And we sometimes can't make the difference in our own minds. So we could say, it's pretty outside, the sun's up, why can't you just get out? Well, get out of bed and come join us. We're going to have fun.
It'll
And
make
they
you feel better.
physically cannot do it.
And I think people don't get that.
Yeah.
We don't get it, and because you don't see it, as you said earlier, we don't see a cane or a cast or something that's very evident physically.
And a lot of times, from my understanding, from one of my consumers or clients when I was doing counseling, when he would get to that manic and feel great stage, I don't need my medicine.
Right.
The mind's,
Oh,
they know
gotcha.
they're supposed to, but there's something in there that clicks off.
Well, all of a sudden I'm well. I
Yeah.
feel normal, so I don't need this. How many of us have taken a antibiotic?
Oh,
You know,
gosh.
you're supposed.
Guilty.
Yeah, I know we all are. You take 10 days worth of antibiotics. Oh, the 5th or 6th day I feel pretty good. I'll just save this if it comes up again.
Yeah.
Have we not all done that?
Oh, yeah. Guilty.
Exactly. And that's part of mental illness. It affects, when you are in an episode, it affects your being logical. You know, and Jim talked about, we have mood disorders, and we have thought disorders, and we have personality disorders. So within mental illness, there are different classifications of that illness. Like a thought disorder is schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder. That's the thought disorder. A mood disorder is the depression, the bipolar. And the personality disorder, like Jim said, are borderline personality.
And that's one of the hardest ones.
Exactly, because there's no medication. But typically, if you have a personality disorder, you probably will have some type of mood disorder or thought disorder.
Okay.
So when people are on
It's usually
medication,
dual-diagnosed.
exactly. So
Yes.
they take the medication for the other, which can help sometimes the symptoms of the personality disorders.
And it's something that I think that's another thing. There's not I'll use the word cure for,
Good one. It's a good term. Very good term.
Yeah.
there's not a cure for mental illnesses.
We just put Band-Aids on it.
Well, and do you not think that's what we do in society anyway?
Yes, it is.
Instead of treating the underlying cause, or we treat the symptoms. It's all about symptomology. Even in the medical field, a lot of it is they can't cure a lot of diseases, but they can give you medication to help with the symptoms that you're experiencing. MS, for instance. There's a lot of and I know there's been a lot of progress with MS, multiple sclerosis, but they're not curing it. They're helping you manage the symptoms. So it
Exactly.
sounds like that a lot of what goes on with Jamie is managing her symptomologies.
You know, and think about this. In the newspaper the other day, Jim and I, of course, have got to know the jail administrator pretty well in Floyd County. Why? Because there are lots of people with mental illness.
Yeah.
And Judge Niedrak, which is starting the mental health court here in Floyd County, there is a statistic. You know, we say 1 in every 4, 1 in every 5, depending on where you read, has a mental illness. Well, Judge Niedrak had put in the newspaper last week there were 143 out of 632, somewhere that's pretty close, people are on psychotic medications for mental illness
At the jail.
at the jail.
Wow.
So
Floyd
that's
County
1 in
Jail.
5.
Hold that thought. Unfortunately, we have to take a break. Get your coffee, and we'll be right back with GHC Coffee Break.
I'm transferring to the University of West Georgia.
Columbia University.
Kennesaw State,
UGA, Loyola University in Chicago,
Grambling State.
Shorter University.
I'm going to Greensboro College, and we all got our start at Georgia Highlands.
No matter where your educational journey takes you, you can get your start at Georgia Highlands College. Georgia Highlands College. Enroll, engage, excel.
Welcome back to GHC Coffee Break. I'm sorry I had to break us off right in that during that statistic because I think it's a relevant one, and we've seen things in the news lately. So repeat again what you were saying about the jail, and then let's go from there.
1 in 5 people, 1 in 4 to 1 in 5, have a mental illness. And in the jail, the statistic is 1 in every 4.5 are on psychotic medications within our jail in Floyd County. And most of them have committed minor offenses. But with the media, all we see is the young man, in DeKalb County that was killed by a police officer when he was naked. Mm-hmm. And, it was one of those things. He had bipolar and he had post-traumatic stress. He had been on his medication and he was trying to get back into the VA, could not, and there was a time lag there. And so he had some symptoms, mm-hmm. and he was killed by law enforcement because of his symptoms, basically.
And I know you guys do a lot of training with, and I think Floyd County is a really big advocate, critical incidents.
Oh, it's
CIT.
crisis intervention team,
excuse
me. CIT. Yeah, why don't you tell them about that, Bonnie, since you're...
Well, that's kind of my love.
Your baby.
It is. That's kind of my baby. Jamie and I go into 31 counties in North Georgia, and I set up classes along with law enforcement on how to train law enforcement when they come in contact with somebody with mental illness. It's a 40-hour class, absolutely free to law enforcement, other than having to have people take off. But it's 40 hours. We have actual class work. We have professionals come in and talk about schizophrenia, mental illness, bipolar, Alzheimer's disease, dual diagnosis with an addiction. So we go through all of that within the classroom. Then on Tuesday, we take actual site visits. We take them to a hospital so that they have interaction. We take them to peer support. We take them to housing. And then then there are 15 hours of actual de-escalation. We give them a scenario that they have to figure out how to de-escalate what's going on. But one of the coolest things is on Tuesday morning, Jamie does an hour presentation in our own voice, and she tells them about her illness, her signs, her symptoms, what it's like, and what she needs when law enforcement is called.
Wow. And
so Jamie has a lot of friends, shall we say, in 31 counties because they have fallen in love with her, because they see this young woman come in that's very articulate, and they don't see the illness. And that's the last thing she says to them is, I am Jamie Griffin. I am not my illness. And sometimes,
so you're gonna make me cry.
Sometimes if you don't understand illness, you see the person as their illness, and they are not their illness.
Yeah.
And she's my hero. I'm not real sure that I could do the things that she does. She's my hero. And she is the hero of a lot of law enforcement. And she's won several awards for doing that. So I'm very proud of her.
Well, I'm very proud of you guys, and y'all are my heroes. You're a couple of my heroes.
Thank you, Susan.
I had a daughter with a physical illness,
right.
And of course she ultimately died. But the thought of some illnesses are lifelong.
Yes.
And what you guys have done and are doing and continue to do, you don't just consume. You actually go out there and pay it forward and say, hey, look, we know this is an issue in our area. We know that people need to be recognized and understood and seen as this beautiful, because I know Jamie. She's very beautiful and articulate. For the dedication, because a lot of couples that go through what y'all gone through are not couples anymore.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, you see that quite a bit, but usually because of the the husband, I'm going to stereotype us now. The husband
You can say that, you're the man.
you know, wants to fix it, and
Yeah.
we get upset when we can't get a wrench and, you know, tighten it up, and then we just find ourselves walking away, and that's awful. And another sad thing is that people with a mental illness, if they get married, which is not necessarily happens that frequently, if they have a serious mental illness, but those who get married, staying married is a huge challenge, and it really is, because your spouse has to be totally understandable, and that's hard to do, and it really is. You know, not every illness, but the ones we call serious and persistent mental illness, you know, that affects their daily activities. It takes a hero, as Bonnie said, to be part of that and maintain it. Gosh.
Well, you guys are my heroes. I also want to say about education. A lot of people do not, when they think of mental illness, well, they can't go to school, they can't go to college. And I know you said your son-in-law just recently graduated, you know, in a program, and with a high GPA, I might add.
Yes.
So the stereotypes of their learning capability are maintaining a normal lifestyle. I think a lot of people don't really understand that either. They kind of picture, you know, the hospitals, which unfortunately I'm gonna get on my soapbox for 1 second.
Good for you, Susan.
Getting, you know, Northwest Regional closing down in many hospitals in this state for people with severe mental illness issues. That was it was a least restrictive environment because that's what they needed. And for us to close down and not, to me, put the support, I told you I'm getting on my soapbox, putting the support
right
in
there
our
with you.
community to help these people with, and like you said, it's Jamie, it's, you know, whomever, Susan, it's whoever's got these mental health issues. They're a person first. Put them in a least restrictive environment, help them, give them support when they're not in a mental institution, but don't just take it away and say, oh, we don't need this anymore.
Yeah, a good example is our last SPLOST, a request in our Floyd County was to add beds for mental health in the jail, okay?
Oh, wow.
Recently, Judge Niedracht is going to preside over mental health court. Now just think, if we had solid community services where people recognize that they have an illness and seek and take to heart those services, we wouldn't need a mental health court.
Right.
We wouldn't need beds in the jail for specifically mental health patients. We wouldn't have 130 to 160 people receiving medications in the jail, because they wouldn't be there. They'd be served in the community.
And that's where the education comes in, and that's where NAMI comes in, because we have lots of free programs to educate not only the public but the family members and the person with the mental illness, so that you understand, you see those signs and symptoms, you don't become worn out. What we do, everything we do is free. We've got a NAMI Basics, which is a free class for parents and caregivers of children with brain disorders. So they know how to keep records. They know how to communicate. They can see the signs and symptoms before they become severe. Family to Family is a 12-week course. It's absolutely free. And every time we have a class, people walk away and go, I've had a mentally ill child. This is an example. I've been dealing with my child's mental illness for 15 to 20 years, and I had no idea. And for the first time, we're starting to communicate again.
Wow.
And that's important. Education, as we well know, because isn't that what it's about? Once we're educated, we are able to deal with something a whole lot better.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
And you know,
knowledge
we talk
is
about
power.
when we talk about people with mental illness, a lot of times people in our society think about developmental disabilities and mental illness.
Yeah.
They're totally different. Most people with the mental illness are very, very bright.
Yeah.
And we as a society don't recognize that. They are typically very bright.
It's really, and I've attended a couple of training. It's not it's veterans coming back with PTSD.
Oh, we've got a program for that. It's called Homefront.
There you go. See, and that's the thing. I think people not realizing and knowing what the resources are available out there, and I think that's a real big thing about this idea of mental health consumer awareness is
Right.
there are services. It shouldn't be so doggone hard to find them.
I agree.
Right.
When Felicia died, or well, let's go back into the 80s when my son died, the nearest help, I think it was Compassionate Friends, was in Sandy Springs, Georgia. I lived in Buchanan at that time, Georgia. And it was a night program, and I'm going, okay, I'm going to go 100 or 75 miles one way at 7 o'clock at night, coming back home at 11. I'm in a depressed state because of my son's death. Not a good idea. But that was the closest one. So what did I do? I didn't go. And I sucked up and had a lot of emotional issues going on myself with depression and sadness and anger and all the grieving things we talked about. We only have a couple more minutes, but I think that's one last thing I'll kind of bring up is the idea of when we think about loss. You know, when Jamie was coming into this world, you planned on this perfect little girl. Everything was going to be great.
That is absolutely right.
Doesn't mean you love Jamie less, but it was different when she was born, and then you started having or noticing issues. You went through a grieving process.
And Susan, that is a good point. Families have a loved one with mental illness. We don't go through the grieving once. We go through grieving time and time again.
Yeah.
So it's a never-ending process. We just go through the different stages of grief at different times.
And I think that's really important to recognize because as into human services, a lot of the clients that you may work with could be families of people who have disabilities,
Yes.
mental illnesses. And I think it is really important to be aware that the grieving process is not linear. You know, it's not like, okay, I got depressed, I got angry, and I finally get to acceptance. Kubler-Ross was right, but they didn't necessarily come in that order. And even if you get to that place, I don't even call it acceptance. I call it adjustment. And unfortunately, our time is up. I have so much more I'd like to talk about. But get your coffee, and we'll be right back with GHC Coffee Break.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
Yeah, but they can go on the website.
Welcome back to GHC Coffee Break. Jim, Bonnie, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being here today. Yes, you can say it. You are my heroes. But I know you have some phone numbers and information real quick to give out before we go. So.
Okay. We have a phone number. If anybody needs any information, please feel free to call. It's 706-506-5010. And we have a website. Please go on our website. It's NAMI-ROMEGA.org. All kinds of information, how to get in touch with us. Jim does our website, so good information, but 706-506-5010 to get in touch with us.
Wonderful. Thank you. And until next time on GHC Coffee Break, we'll see you next time.